In the previous 2 sessions, there were a few verses that I didn't recite very well. It is that. Today, for our transmission of the Madhyamaka treasure, the Madhyamaka light ornament, it should be the last day. Well, we have spent 3 days giving you, what is called, our transmission. A while ago at a school, I spoke about several different lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, among which, the recitation with explanation is called the explanation transmission, and receiving this lineage is called transmission. If there is no commentary, and it is recited entirely from beginning to end, then it is called recitation transmission, simply a direct recitation, that is how it is. There is also, for example, transmission, which is that transmission, such as transmitting individually to certain disciples, or some methods of master to disciple transmission. There are many, many of those. So this time, what we have is relatively simple. It is called explanation, that is, explaining while reciting, so I am transmitting it to everyone. Of course, during the transmission process, most of us were quite focused. There are some who told me that yesterday, while the transmission was ongoing, they were listening well, and then later they fell asleep. When they woke up, the Bhadrakarya Pranadhana had been recited, the dedication was done, and there was nothing left. Some students had already fallen asleep during the transmission process, but there is no help for it, that kind of situation also happens. Regardless, of course, everyone's circumstances are not exactly the same, especially for some of our fellow practitioners abroad. There is indeed a very, very large time difference. I have been to some Southeast Asian countries, some Northern European countries, and different parts of the United States, so indeed, for some fellow practitioners right now, it is 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of them have been listening from the start of the association until now at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, which I find really quite extraordinary. For me, even if it is a very profound teaching, listening to it at 2 or 3 in the morning is truly a great challenge. Yet, those of you who are truly dedicated to the Dharma must possess a very extraordinary level of commitment. Our course this time is only 3 days, which is relatively simple, but I have noticed that while some people highly value the lineage and the teachings, others treat it just as a pastime, dropping in at the beginning and then leaving when there is nothing major going on. There are also some who, perhaps due to network connection issues or other reasons, only show up to watch when we are already halfway through the lecture. Actually, receiving teachings is not like watching an entertainment program. If you watch a show like a Spring Festival Gala without starting from the beginning, you won't be able to follow what is going on in the middle. Therefore, I hope that in the future, if you are listening to lectures online, it is best to complete all the preliminary recitations beforehand. If that is truly not possible, I have now set a fixed time, for instance, starting officially every evening at 8 o'clock. Before 8 o'clock, you should finish your recitations. Then, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I will try my best to be precise to the very minute. When it comes to the lectures, in a while, I plan to teach the Vimalakirti Sutra, and as for the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, we have already been studying it for 3 years, and this is the 4th year, which will be the final volume. We plan to finish it this year, though I have forgotten exactly how many sessions are left. It will probably be around 10 more sessions. For all of these, I will try my best to start punctually at 8 o'clock each time, and at the latest, we must finish by 9 o'clock. I will be strictly enforcing this from now on, and I hope that those of you attending the lectures will mentally prepare yourselves accordingly. Listening should be like attending a class. If you're not going to listen, you might as well not start at all, rather than falling behind the group. Of course, there are special circumstances, like being away on business or other unavoidable situations where you truly cannot attend due to work or family reasons. Sometimes there is simply no network signal. In that case, we have a playback the next day. If even that cannot be heard, then temporarily we have no other way, but that is truly a very exceptional case. However, most people should not get into the habit of missing sessions. We should treat listening to the Dharma as something very important in our lives. We have some exceptional role models here, like some elderly practitioners in their 70s or 80s who have never missed a single teaching. Conversely, some young people, not because of work but out of habit, often don't listen well and leave before the session even ends. Of course, there are times when some people might be truly ill or asleep, and such things will always happen. As for me personally, I have been listening to teachings from the Guru Rinpoche for 19 years now. During these 19 years, I honestly cannot recall a single instance where I broke the continuity of receiving these teachings. Especially back then, we were very diligent, sleeping very little every night, which made the next day particularly difficult. But when the Guru taught, especially in the afternoon right after lunch, usually, the Guru Rinpoche would start at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yes, it was at 4 o'clock in the morning. Later on, sometimes it was changed to the afternoon, and then back to 4 o'clock in the morning. It varied like that. But when it was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would sometimes get sleepy, perhaps because lunch was quite good. Back then at the Buddhist Academy, our food wasn't great, but regardless of whether the food was good or not, it was always difficult after finishing lunch. However, even if I was sleepy, I would recite it myself or find other ways. I absolutely would not break the continuity of the lineage. So, really, I don't have any other particular merits, but when it comes to being obedient before the Master, over these 19 years, I haven't missed a single transmission. And from beginning to end, it has been quite extraordinary. That is to say, if someone writes something for me, or perhaps some people offer me their works, I don't have any other specialties, but I do have this devotion to the Masters and this joy for the Dharma. I am truly very, very interested in the Dharma. As for the transmissions, I have always attached great importance to all of them, and I have never missed any of them at all. Therefore, except for special circumstances, I hope that the majority of us, this 93.45678%, are doing quite well. Yes, 93.45678. Then there is the remaining 6-point-something%, who might often have the habit of lagging behind or stalling. I hope that for this kind of habit, next time, I am now teaching the Vimalakirti Sutra, and I personally feel that this may be the first time in my life I have taught it. It is certainly the first time, though perhaps not necessarily the last, as there might be a second time. In one's life, take my teaching of the Madhyamaka Hr Daya Karika, for example. I have taught it 3 times in my life, and today is the 3rd time. As for the Vimalakirti Sutra, today I have also set aside many of my own personal matters to prepare for this teaching. Before we begin, I hope that each of you understands, I do not require anyone to attend, nor am I forcing you to listen for an entire afternoon. It is not like that. Even if there are 100 of you, I cannot see you, and whether the number increases by 1 or decreases by several thousand, it makes no difference to me. But from my own perspective, how should I put it? From the bottom of my heart, for those of you who truly have sincere faith, as Buddhists, we must recognize that the Dharma is excellent and we should definitely uphold it. Regarding the sutra, it has been over a year, because there aren't many sessions, not as many as the Lotus Sutra. For many of us studying both exoteric and esoteric Buddhism, I see the Vimalakirti Sutra as a bridge. It is neither purely exoteric nor purely esoteric, it sits in the middle. You could call it a point of intersection, a fusion of exoteric and esoteric teachings. Thus, regarding this transmission, all of us present here should treat this as a serious matter. If you intend to listen, please try your best. As I often say, important things should be repeated 3 times. If you truly lack the time for the preceding recitations, at least when it comes to the main lecture, it is best that you arrive on time. Look at the internet now. There are courses for learning English, Korean, Japanese, and other very valuable subjects. They are precise to the minute. When the time comes, the teacher appears. Once the lecture is finished, say, if the class is scheduled for 25 or 30 minutes, then after those 25 minutes, they say goodbye, and the session is over. Actually, this approach is very good. Our time is indeed precious. If it were not for the Buddha Dharma, I would not waste your such valuable lives. Each of us is so busy with so many things, and we can barely get enough rest. If we still have people causing interruptions during such important matters, then such people are bad actors. They are effectively destroying our lives. However, the Buddha Dharma is extremely important. Therefore, we will add a bit of recitation before and after, so that basically everything will be completed within 2 hours. That is how we will do it. Even if we include the recitations, the actual lecture will definitely be finished within 1 hour. It will start promptly at 8 o'clock, and that is how it will be from now on. So, in this process, if we are to listen, it is best to be well prepared in these 33 aspects beforehand. If you don't listen, that's also fine. It depends on each individual's inclination, faith, and certainty. It really comes down to whether a person has the time, the interest, and the necessary conditions. However, some people are indeed very sincere, so we should all have a genuine faith in the Dharma. Only then can we truly receive the lineage and the value of the Buddha's teachings. If we merely treat it as general knowledge or academic study, the benefit you receive may perhaps only be partial. Therefore, at the beginning, when we have thousands or tens of thousands of people attending class, some suddenly leave halfway through, without finishing the session, it seems there are always those who don't stay until the end. But when we first start, there is a group that takes it quite seriously, especially those online, as our regular live audience is usually very attentive. I am very grateful to the local volunteers and staff for these 2 days. Although the number of people here might not be huge, just 100 or 200, the atmosphere is quite focused, as this is a 3-day session. For this course, both you and I place great importance on it. If it were a 3-year course, I truly wouldn't know how many people would remain by the end. Regardless, our Buddhist Academy has been operating for many years. I have been teaching in Chinese for over 30 years now. Last year, in 2017, it officially marked 30 years, so I have always been engaged in this work at the Academy. Therefore, the advantage of our Academy's students is that everyone loves to practice, loves to attend lectures, and loves to study and cultivate themselves. Practicing through listening, contemplating, and meditating is the most essential treasure for us Buddhists, and in reality, this is indeed the case. Nowadays, whether Buddhist practitioners are monastics or laypeople, if we do not engage in listening, contemplating, and meditating, we are merely Buddhists in name, not truly authentic ones. If we are truly practicing, then in terms of propagating the Dharma or contributing to society, everyone should be able to see the specific results and how things are progressing. Therefore, for our third lesson today, I would like to discuss with everyone what we have for today. This text covers topics such as faith and the aspiring mind, and later we will discuss the 7 types of arrogance and the 5 types of faults. These are all things we encounter in our daily lives and practice. We need to constantly observe these, otherwise, we wouldn't even be aware of our own 7 types of arrogance. These are discussed in greater detail in the Abhidharmakosha and other foundational texts. What is covered here is a general overview, though it is explained quite thoroughly. I hope that through these 3 sessions of our short retreat, I can create an auspicious connection and provide the transmission, and in the coming year, I will assign the Diamond Sutra and the Madhyamaka treatise as homework, and by the end of the year, I will remind everyone to see who has read them and who has not. It would be best if some Buddhists could properly study these books, for instance, by doing specialized research on the Diamond Sutra and reading it repeatedly. As for the Madhyamaka treatise, while I have explained some of the principles in a way that is easy to understand for the group, there are parts discussing emptiness that are more difficult, and some of those difficult sections might not be perfectly suited to your current state of mind. At this moment, you shouldn't give up on all the arguments just because you don't seem to understand part of the content. Just because you don't understand some of it, you shouldn't assume that none of it relates to you. That shouldn't be the case. It is actually impossible to apply every single piece of knowledge you learn. When we are in middle school or university, there may be a part of a book that is particularly suitable for you. For instance, if you are studying physics, chemistry, pedagogy, or psychology, there will be parts where you say, "Wow, this part really fits me well." But for the most part, it may seem like it has nothing to do with you. Yet, at this point, you can't say the course is fake or useless to you. That is not the right attitude. So, at the very least, in the process of learning, there will be some things you are interested in and some you are not. When I was at the normal school, I was more interested in psychology, but I didn't understand pedagogy very well. Then, I had a classmate who was more interested in pedagogy. We discussed it and decided that when it came to the exam, he would focus on pedagogy and I would focus on psychology. During the exam, we would share information with each other because it was difficult to study everything. Since I had mastered psychology and was naturally interested in it, and he was naturally interested in pedagogy, we felt this would work. Then, during the exam, after he finished writing, he would put his paper by me so I could look at it, and after I finished the psychology part, I would put mine by him for him to see. But once, the teacher caught us, so we both did poorly because neither of us did well on anything outside of our own specialties. So, sometimes learning is just like this. Perhaps you can't master all the knowledge, but because everyone's foundation, background, mindset, and karma are different, there are times when you truly don't understand or are truly not interested in the subject. Such situations do happen. So, for the teachings of Buddhism, it is best to understand them in a comprehensive way. When trying to understand them comprehensively, if you lose interest in some parts, do not give up on them because of that. In reality, Buddhism truly encompasses a vast amount of knowledge. Yesterday, I had a discussion with a very famous scientist here, and during the process, we both reached a consensus on this point. Buddhism is truly great, whether from the perspectives of philosophy, education, or science, everything is covered within it. Moreover, these principles are backed by very sharp evidence and wisdom. So sometimes, we feel something that is truly indescribable, which can only be expressed as inconceivable, that is the kind of situation we encounter. However, not everyone necessarily has the same feeling or perception, which is why it speaks to many aspects in this regard. If I cannot finish reading today, then it will not be possible. Are you preparing for 8 o'clock today? Is it starting at 9? That is at 9, right? Start. It mentions here what it means to speak of others' faults. It refers to constantly pointing out people's shortcomings. When we are displeased with someone's actions, we tend to talk about their flaws and mistakes, but this is actually unreasonable. Ancient people also said this: those who see the good in others are good, while those who see the evil in others are evil. If we speak of others' faults, it shows we are bad people. If we speak of others' merits and contributions, it shows we are kind and virtuous people. Therefore, we should frequently sit in meditation to observe our own faults carefully, rather than broadcasting or exposing the mistakes of others. Thus, in daily life and in our spiritual practice, we should try our best to observe our own minds. This text discusses the bodhisattva stages, from the first stage, the stage of joy, all the way to the fourth stage. When one reaches the third stage of the bodhisattva, greed and anger are extinguished. So some of us ask, what should I do? Even when I practice, I still have hatred, even after practicing for such a long time. It hasn't been eliminated yet. Greed hasn't been eliminated yet. Actually, it's not that easy. You see, it says here that greed and hatred are only extinguished upon reaching the third stage. In fact, some subtle traces remain even up to the 10th stage. We haven't reached that yet, some may not even have started, so don't have such high expectations for yourself. It is very normal for you to still have greed and hatred. When you have greed, hatred, and delusion, don't regret it, and don't push yourself too hard, like taking sleeping pills or things like that. None of that is necessary, right? Only when we see the virtues of these stages do we realize that we are still far from reaching that realm. So, before one has attained a stage, one should not assume that just because one has studied, one has already attained it. Some people think, now that someone has become a monk, how could a monk still have any afflictions? If they have already studied the Dharma and still have afflictions, then studying is useless. Actually, that's not the right requirement. It's like how we go abroad to study. Studying doesn't mean you have already become a master. Earth stages. In our practice, among the various daily tasks, we often do things like taking refuge. There is a verse that says, I take refuge in the Buddhas, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Bodhisattvas with respect. It is very important that we frequently pay homage and make offerings before the three jewels. As for making offerings, it doesn't necessarily have to be to a monk. It's really about having a sense of respect for the Buddha in your heart. So, at this time, as I mentioned yesterday, you could create some Buddha images or something similar. Actually, obtaining this human life and having such conditions is very rare for us. Even among the heavenly realms it is the same. If we offer prostrations with a sincere heart, a joyful heart, and genuine faith. The merit of these offerings is inconceivable. Even if we approach it with a doubting mind, the merit should still be very, very great. Today, I encountered some people who seemed to have some ill intentions toward me. I realized that if I view them with a questioning heart, there is actually great merit in that. Then, my mind immediately shifted to joy. Even if they had bad intentions, I remembered the teachings, such as those in the Lotus Sutra, which say that even with a distracted mind or through various associations, even if I am not treating them with reverence or joy, but with a distracted or even a negative mind, there is still a powerful karmic connection. Therefore, I say this from the bottom of my heart. Our human life right now is precious. Even for those of us who feel we aren't practicing well, we should think, I haven't done well, I will start fresh today. It is a matter of feeling ashamed and recognizing where we have fallen short. Actually, it is truly not easy to encounter the Dharma and to possess a heart that feels shame for one's shortcomings. If we were reborn in the realms of hell, hungry ghosts, or animals, we would not have this heart at all. If we were among beings in the remote borderlands, we would not even be able to give rise to a single thought of shame. So, having these wholesome thoughts and this state of mind is exceptionally rare. Therefore, we should frequently pay homage and bow to the Buddha, as this also brings forth great merit. The Agamas also mention this. For instance, the Buddha's life had 5 kinds of merit, such as having a noble appearance, a beautiful voice, perfect wealth, being born into a prestigious family, and eventually attaining the happiness of humans and gods. So, some people are blessed with perfect fortune and wealth in this life, while others face hardships. There is indeed a cause, a hidden cause, and we must believe in this causality. If we truly believe in this, it will bring profound and significant benefits to ourselves and to all other sentient beings. We should also make vows frequently. In all future worlds, may any beings who hear my name, think of me, touch me, or remember me, anyone who forms a connection with me, obtain all happiness, and may I never cause even the slightest harm to any living creature. We have a 20-character aspiration prayer here that you should all read. With our lives, we should not bring fear, threats, or suffering to living beings, as our actions, whether direct or indirect, can cause harm. That is, bringing suffering to living beings. At this point, I would like to say that while many people today talk about being filial to their parents, many young people do not quite understand the proper method. They often try to educate their parents according to their own way of thinking, which is very difficult. Parents have already become the greatest educators in one's life. Therefore, if you try to teach them, they will certainly not accept it. In their eyes, you will always be their student. This is why some of our children today, when they have achieved a little bit of success, often try to force their parents into their own limited framework of wisdom, telling them, you should do this, or, you should do that, but that is likely not the right approach. Instead, you should let them live their later years in peace, health, and happiness, giving them a bit more freedom. It is best to let them study the Dharma, but if they truly cannot, especially if their views are as solid and fixed as a mountain, you should just let it be and try not to cause them pain. I see that while many of us take care of our parents and family, we struggle on the other hand because we insist on teaching them. However, a student can never truly lecture their teacher. In their eyes, that is who you will always be. Even if your parents are farmers who cannot read a single word, and you are a highly educated doctor, they will always view you as their student. Under these circumstances, we should often be mindful of our thoughts toward others, as mentioned in the treatises of the mind. When we think of the well-being of sentient beings, we should not harm them, and not harming sentient beings is the vow we take for our entire lives. Asanga Bodhisattva. Didn't I mention yesterday that I translated the teachings of the Bodhisattvas and Asanga Bodhisattva in Hangzhou? It was back then, around 5 or perhaps 7 years ago, that I translated them. In that text, there are several verses at the end that are very famous, which many of the high monks in our tradition often recite. Therefore, we must ensure that all beings who see, hear, or come into contact with us do not suffer, but rather attain happiness. This is that kind of practice. Vow. Not too many now. Okay, today. His vow here is that as long as there is even one sentient being who has not attained enlightenment, even if I attain Buddhahood, I will still take the vow to remain in the cycle of existence. It is like what is said in the Kaya Sutra. If the hells are not empty, I will not attain Buddhahood. It means not seeking personal peace, but wishing only for the enlightenment of all beings. This is that kind of aspiration. Therefore, we should also frequently think to ourselves that if there is still one sentient being who has not attained Buddhahood, I will never enter nirvana. This is also found in the Kaya Sutra, just like this. In this treatise, it discusses the spiritual master, describing 4 specific characteristics. What are these 4 characteristics? It says here that they should be free from the accumulation of afflictions, which is to say that as a practitioner, you must seek a true spiritual master. Didn't we discuss selecting a teacher yesterday? There are conditions for selecting a master. You cannot just follow any teacher you happen to see without meeting the proper criteria. Nowadays, many of us are very attentive to reciting things like the bodhicitta or practicing compassion. Many people pay special attention to this, and indeed, that is how it should be. Relying on a spiritual master is the same. If you hear claims about past lives and such, the truth is that the Buddhist scriptures do not state that you must search for a master based on past life connections. The requirements in the scriptures are very clear. Here, we also follow this. There are several criteria for a guru. The first condition is that a guru should not be insatiably greedy. They should be content with what they have. They don't demand many offerings or require a grand setting to perform their duties. That is not the sign of a true guru. A true guru is one with few desires. This is the first condition. The second condition is that, whether it be the bodhisattva vows or the pratimoksha vows, the guru's moral discipline must be pure. That is the second condition. As for the third condition, it is mentioned here that they must possess loving kindness and compassion. They must have a compassionate heart toward all sentient beings. This includes their own family and the people around them. One can truly see the sign of compassion in such a guru. This is the third condition. The fourth and most fundamental condition is the wisdom to eliminate afflictions. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva requires these qualities for a guru. These are the 3 signs of a wise teacher. If a guru possesses these 4 conditions, you should respect them and follow their teachings. If they do not possess these, you should not. As you may recall from the Bodhisattva scriptures, there are 2 primary characteristics of a guru. Even at the cost of one's life, one should not abandon the guru. So, what are the conditions for this guru? One is to be well versed in the Mahayana Dharma, and the second is to have no intention to deceive sentient beings, truly, not to deceive anyone. You must remember that as we study the Shastras today, you should at least understand some of it. If you don't grasp these points, even if you hear the merits of the lineage, it won't be effective. If you understand these points, then when you seek a spiritual friend in the future, check if they possess the merits of contentment, the merits of pure moral discipline, and the merits of loving kindness. Do they possess the wisdom to eliminate afflictions? This is even more important. If they lack the wisdom to eliminate afflictions, since what I need is to eliminate my own afflictions, not for other trivial matters, then that guru cannot help you resolve your problems. If you just want someone to cast a divination for you, you can do that yourself. You can even do your own fortune telling, as there are many fortune tellers today, and plenty of them online. But the most fundamental aspect is the wisdom to eliminate afflictions and the need to truly cultivate compassion for all sentient beings, as well as learning to adhere to the Vinaya and precepts. Therefore, our treatises emphasize these 2 points, which everyone should remember. In the future, if I happen to meet those who attended our original Dharma assembly, there were many people there, and at the time there was a group leader, I would ask if you have heard the treatise on the middle way. I have heard it. If you have heard it, how many criteria for a spiritual mentor are mentioned in the treatise on the middle way? Which ones are they? That is what I want to ask. Some people might not say anything, perhaps because they haven't heard it, or really haven't heard it. I haven't heard it, I haven't heard it, I am sorry. But because I had work commitments, I happened to be away on business at the time, even though I was meant to be there, and later I couldn't return to join. Speak. Oh, the characteristics of a spiritual mentor, as taught by Shantideva, are these. We should follow the sutras, like the Sutra of the 10 Dharmas. For instance, just as a doctor diagnoses where the illness is, a bodhisattva uses these criteria to recognize the teacher's qualities, such as being disciplined, peaceful, having restrained conduct, and possessing wisdom. For a period of time, I compared the Tibetan teachings with the Korean Tripitaka's translations of Northern Buddhism, specifically the Sutra of the 10 Dharmas. We look at who is a spiritual mentor by observing their gentleness of heart, their self-discipline, and their wisdom. Even if we don't have the ability to read minds, we can fundamentally observe these traits. You see, If we are in an organization and need to select two people, those individuals must be observed carefully. Didn't I mention yesterday that Buffett has 4 criteria when he wants to hire someone? So, when we intend to rely on a spiritual mentor, we should first act like an undercover agent and observe them slowly. Understand them from the sides, understand them from the front, in many different ways. If you have truly committed to following a mentor, then no matter what happens, do not keep changing them frequently. Otherwise, switching around. Some people follow one teacher for 3 years, then another for the next 3. Given that our lives are so short, we simply don't have time to keep switching. That is why, once you truly encounter a virtuous teacher, it is best not to keep changing back and forth among various beings. To do so is improper and unreasonable. Once you follow someone, it is not like our worldly friendships. With worldly friends, you can be with them when you like, and discard them when you don't. That is fine, but what is wrong with that concept? This advice was not meant exclusively for a king. Whether it was back then or in the present, it is also beneficial to other beings. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's teachings were intended for all sentient beings. They are necessary for everyone. Although it was addressed to a king at the time, much like how leaders today might offer guidance, it was spoken to a small group then, but the ideals can be learned by everyone. The concepts of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva were originally taught to a king, but now we should all study them. Especially for all of you here, I believe it will be very helpful, just as it has been for many students in our academy in the past. Because most people in the world today do not understand definitive goodness or higher rebirth. Some aim too high without any foundation, talking about emptiness, stages, or great perfection, while their practice remains rooted only in worldly dharma, lacking any basis in emptiness, precepts, or bodhicitta. They just aren't there yet. So, many of our practitioners today are a bit na-em. Back then, it was Chandra Kirti, and it seems our Madhyamaka tradition also follows his approach. He relied on 3 Sanskrit versions from India for this translation, just as I have been thinking about the Vimalakirti Sutra. The Vimalakirti Sutra also has these versions. There are long ones, and there is also the Kumarajiva version. There are only 3 versions available now, just 3 versions. Among them, what we are preparing to teach this time is the one by Kumarajiva. As for others, if you need to consult them yourself, there are also some commentaries on the Vimalakirti Sutra available online. Since we are going to study a classic text or a treatise, it would be good to prepare these reference books in advance. When we used to teach at the academy, we would buy them and prepare them for everyone, but there's no way to do that now. With so many people listening online, if you truly want to learn, it's best not to just rely on the scripture itself. On top of the scripture, you should know to refer to the teachings of past masters or those of current eminent monks and scholars. That would perhaps be a better attitude towards studying the Buddha Dharma. I will also give you the transmission as I have done before. Just like today, if you receive the transmission of this middle way text without interruption, you can say in the future that you have received it from me. By receiving this transmission, whether you go on to teach others or study it yourself, having this lineage is like our current tradition of Chinese medicine or many oral instructions. You can say, I have received this Dharma and this transmission. Therefore, regarding this Vimalakirti Sutra, we are also prepared to use Kumarajiva's Chinese translation. As for our schedule, as I mentioned earlier, it will be around the middle of March. Each day will be about an hour long, and there will likely be 1 or 2 sessions per week, probably divided into 3 or 4 terms. The first term will be from mid-March to mid-May, roughly speaking. As for the second term, it might be toward the end of the year, but the exact time has not been finalized yet. Generally speaking, I personally consider this matter to be quite significant in life. Beyond that, there isn't much else, so today, I would like to address everyone present here. You have all listened very attentively, and I am very pleased with how this has concluded. Over the past 3 days, I have offered the lineage of the Madhyamaka treatise to you all. I hope that when you have the opportunity in the future, you will propagate it well. Even if you do not have the conditions to do so widely, you should at least pass it on to someone before you pass away. For instance, to your children or fellow Buddhists. I have a very good practice for this, as we have such traditions in our local area, where I hold a valuable transmission of a certain Dharma. Whenever it is convenient, you should pass the Dharma currently in your own stream of consciousness to someone else, even if it is just reciting it once. That is how it should be done. Indeed, some great masters of the past, even if they had many disciples or possessed many precious lineages, would pass their Dharma on to others, including their own children, if they could not find anyone else, much like the interactions we have. This is my family's precious treasure, and I value it highly, so I must pass it on. I will pass it to my grandchildren, and so on. This is how we should approach the realm of wisdom. Regarding this wisdom, take the Jewish people, for example. When their children are young and show a special interest in money or gold, they are taught that there is something far more valuable than gold. Then the child asks, Mom, Dad, what exactly is that thing? It is wisdom. Wisdom is something even more important than gold. What kind of concept are they trying to instill in their children through this tradition? It is that beyond material wealth, there exists an even more important form of wealth. This is something I truly believe in, and I say this to everyone from the bottom of my heart. I am very joyful today to have recited this lineage for so many people. And I hope that you will all continue to carry forward the teachings of the Dharma, and to keep spreading the truth as much as you are able to, in whatever capacity you can.